Brothers and sisters, I'm Vince Cameron, candidate for president, ILA Local 1408. And while I should be here today giving you the many reasons why I'm the best candidate for the job of president of Local 1408, instead I'm here to share with you some particulars about a dark cloud that has stepped on the democracy of this local. At a time when we've got 3 new cranes coming in, and I wanted to talk about that, I got to talk about this because this has set the stage for several candidates, not just myself, not to be a part of this upcoming election cycle. And it isn't based on credible reasoning. It is a strong arm attempt to minimize the ballot to get and achieve result. And we can't just stand for that. At the very least, you need to be in the know of what's on the table. As most of you already know, from the very beginning, day one of this current administration, January 2nd, 2020, they launched an investigation into my services to this local as the union president. The same years of service where we got the hall painted inside and out, installed ceiling fans, installed monitors around the room, replaced the heating and AC system, fixed the roof, created new members database and dispatch system, created a kiosk for night replacements, filled in the potholes, asphalted all the lots, installed Wi-Fi, created a 401k, doubled the retirement to 100 per good year, and sent out newsletters of information on a regular basis, all the while saving money for this local every year. All I did was to empower you into being able to be more efficient and more effective in what you did, taking care of the work in the maritime arena. And these are just a few of the things we did. This administration spent nearly 3 years creating a false story to the bonding insurance company. When the lie failed there, they went to the Department of Labor, and after trying to convince them, had the nerve to bring up Tommy Mumford money as a qualifier. And the Department of Labor initiated a year-long investigation into this matter, and then came back, saying that there was nothing there. At this point, the current administration all but lost their minds about that. They had done spent $100,000 of your money at that point in this investigation, right? At this sham of an investigation. In fact, George Spencer said that the Department of Labor didn't know what they were doing. Now I ask you this question. Who do you think really don't know what they're doing? George Spencer or the Department of Labor that sets the infrastructure for all unions don't know what they're doing? So now we find ourselves in January 2022, some 2 years later from this initiation, where now the administration provides a report to the executive board. Come March 8th, they filed charges on me, and on March 10th, they heard them, right? And the executive board voted it down. This administration appealed it to the district. The district came in, voted it down. This administration then appealed to the international, and they put together a 19-page report and voted it down, additionally stating that they had no business even establishing a special committee to do this investigation. They have used your money for their own agenda, and they should be held accountable for that. That wasn't their $100,000 they spent, it was yours. So I say to you, they now all that failed, and now we're in a election cycle 1 week out from December 12th, election of officers. And now they got an election committee that's playing to a shady script narrated by this dark cloud administration, doing more of what they've been doing. They went back into the records of 2009 claiming that I hadn't had an authorization on file for the 5% deduction off the royalty. My response was, so what? 5% is a fee, not a dues, and it don't make you ineligible. I identified the situation because I heard it on the wind. It wasn't like this less than professional group election committee brought it to my attention. It was on the rumor mill that they were going to let me run for wage scale and going to disqualify me for the office election, even though wage scale delegate and officer are under the same standard. They were going to disqualify me for one and let me run in the other one, right? Because they didn't want me to have that much time to deal with this atrocity. So I told them what happened, right? Charles Spencer tried to disqualify me from being a wage scale delegate all the way back in 2013, talking about the 5%, which I never deauthorized in the first place. Don't know how they stopped authorizing. I filed charges, went to Tampa, heard it before the district, won it, and then went to Bank of America, drew a cashier's check out and paid that outstanding money that cleared my tab from 09 to 13. The next year, I paid like $300-400, cleared my tab for 2014. Done. I haven't worked under the contract since that time. There is no deductions from my officer salaries that haven't been appropriately deducted and forwarded to the appropriate entities, so I don't owe anything. Despite the fact, when I filed my charges on this election committee based on a conversation that I initiated, they turned around and did what? We get to the hearing, and the president, George Spencer, on advice of Lorenzo Spencer, said we don't hear election complaints on the front end, we hear it after the fact, which means that they want to go full speed ahead, excluding the people off the ballot despite the right and wrong of it, because that benefits them, and we'll deal with it after the fact, right? That's where they're at with this. Now, this election committee went so far as to even include Kenny Thomas. They said that he was 2 days shy of being in good standing for the 2 years without a break because he paid his 5% 2 years shy of the 2 years. Mind you, 5% ain't a dues, it's a fee. But since Kenny didn't know enough about the ILA landscape to properly defend himself, they railroaded him. And as committed as they are to this shady script, they probably would have railroaded him regardless. So when they sent me this ineligibility letter, it was dated November 7th, a day after I had filed my charges on him, but it wasn't mailed until November 29th, almost 2 weeks later, right? They are purposely foot dragging the notification because they wanted to be able to let it be too late to be able to update the ballot for submission to the supervisor election. Today has got to be the last day in which they can reasonably submit the names for the supervisor election office to create the ballot, and they have been purposely foot dragging on the sham of disqualifications that they put in place. They even removed Tercel McKenzie because they say he didn't submit a resignation from being a header. Tercel McKenzie is not on any list, on no assigned company list or backup list as a header. He is getting jobs through seniority. And if that's a problem, because the whole issue about being a header is the color of authority where it pertains to the hiring. And if that's the case, when Warren took a gang on the paper boat the other day, that disqualified him. When Latoria Austin hired some replacements 2 weeks ago on the car boat, that disqualified him. But this election committee is not uniformly applying the rules. They are cherry picking in accord to the dark script that's been written by this dark administration, right? They removed Keith Hopkins off the ballot for a no contest plea on a domestic violence charge that happened 12 years ago, right? Now, Section 504 of the LMRDA, which sets all the parameters for elections for unions as established by the government, reads as follows. No person who is or has been a member of the Communist Party or been convicted of or served in any part of a prison term resulting from his conviction of robbery, burglary, bribery, extortion, embezzlement, grand larceny, burglary, arson, violation of narcotics laws, murder, rape, assault with intent to kill, assault which inflicts grievous bodily injury, If you don't got those, you don't have a problem. And Mr. Hopkins' situation, his misdemeanor domestic is an assault with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm, because grievous bodily harm is broken bones. It's lacerations requiring stitches. This is not apples to apples. They didn't want him on the ballot. They got kinfolk on there, and they are running this dark script. Lastly, it's my understanding that some person without a driver's license had an issue with drugs and a drug charge that ruled them ineligible. We don't know if that's within or outside of the 13 years, and if it's outside of the 13 years, they should be on the ballot as well. Brothers and sisters, you need to know that this current administration is corrupt in so many different ways. Ways that you see and ways that you don't see. Whatever you do, please vote them out of office. I will tell you this much. If what the election committee has done is allowed to stand, there will be another election. I will guarantee you that, right? But in the interim, you know, they have been allowed to foot drag themselves to the point of no return. And if they do have this election, participate and vote them out of here, because we need to finally send one proper farewell to the Spencers who have just sucked up your money. The 19-page report from the International said they had no business in fielding that hangman committee that they put in place. We went under trusteeship way back in 2012 behind the fact that we had shoddy financial records and shoddy meeting records. And so for them to try to go back into that window of time just speaks to the ineptitude and the underhandedness that's on the table. So I say to you that I wanted you to know what was going on in this cycle, so you'd be in the know, because there's a lot of rumors out there. I wanted to clarify that. I am Vince Cameron, candidate for president, ILA Local 1408, and I approved this message.